You're born in the dust, under a sun that doesn't shine. It burns. The first sound you hear isn't your mother's lullaby. It's a rip, cracking against someone else's back. Welcome to Egypt, land of gods, gold, and people like you who will never touch either. Your mother works in the brick pits, shaping mud with her bare hands until her fingers bleed. Your father? You never knew him. They say he carried stones for the Pharaoh's tomb until one of them crushed his spine. He didn't even get buried in the sand, just covered by it. You grew up thinking that's what the afterlife was, suffocating in silence while the sun laughs. Every day starts the same. Whistles, shouts, the sound of thousands of feet dragging toward the quarry. You lift stone, push carts, swallow dust, and pretend that sweating is the same as praying. Because if the guards catch you resting, they don't lecture. They remind you that you're replaceable. And in Egypt, replacements are born every day. When you're small, you think maybe the gods will help. You hear priests talk about Ra, Anubis, and Osiris, shining beings watching from above. But if they're watching, they must be laughing too, because their temples are lined with gold and your ribs are lined with nothing. You pray anyway, not for freedom, just for water that doesn't taste like sand. Years pass. You grow lean, strong, angry. You stop believing in heaven because you're already living in hell. Sometimes when the sun drops low and the air cools just enough to breathe, you look up at the pyramids, those perfect triangles of stone. You know who built them. It wasn't kings. It was you. But the priests say, your suffering is holy. Funny how holy things always benefit someone else. You start to see the pattern. The more they talk about gods, the harder you have to work. The more you bleed, the more they say you're blessed. At night, you lie beside the others, skin against stone, listening to the whispers. Old men talk about escape, about a river that leads to freedom. No one believes them. They're just stories, the kind people tell when they're too tired to cry. But you don't dream of freedom. You dream of fire, of the palace burning, of gold melting like wax. Because somewhere deep down, you start to think maybe the gods aren't real.
They say if you work hard enough, the overseer might notice you. You did, and he did, but not in the way you hoped. One day, while dragging limestone under the midday sun, a guard points at you. You, the tall one, the one who doesn't die easy. That's how your new life starts, not as a man, not as a slave, but as a tool. You're sent to the inner quarry, where the Pharaoh's stones are carved. No singing, no talking, just work. You think you've seen cruelty before, until you meet the overseer, Nebrit. He's the kind of man who smiles when people beg, the kind who calls punishment correction. But Nebrit notices something. You don't flinch. You don't beg. You just keep lifting. And when he sees that, he laughs. Strong arms, no voice. Perfect. From that day on, he calls you dog. And in Egypt, a dog who obeys lives longer than a man who speaks. You carry stones for months, years maybe. Time stops meaning anything. But one night, Nebrit takes you somewhere different. The palace. It's your first time inside the Pharaoh's city. The air smells of incense instead of sweat. Gold on the walls, marble floors cold under your feet. You don't belong here, and everyone knows it. But you've learned to keep your eyes low and your thoughts buried deeper. They bring you into a room, a strange circle of priests chanting around a pool of oil. At first, you think it's another offering. Then you see the girls, their bodies painted with blue lines swaying to the rhythm. The priests say they're cleansing sin through movement. You've seen enough to know what that means. Nebret whispers, "This is how we keep the gods pleased." You almost laugh, because it's always the same. When the powerful sin, they call it worship. When the weak do it, they call it evil. They make you stand guard near the ritual. You don't understand all the words, but you understand the tone, the hunger. The priests move like shadows, and the women like ghosts. It's not holy, it's human, and that's what makes it terrifying. When it's done, Nebret tells you something strange. The gods see potential in you. You want to say, "No, you see a tool that doesn't break," but you don't speak. You bow your head and walk away. Weeks later, they start trusting you more. You carry messages between the priests and the palace guards. You learn names, secrets, whispers. You learn that the Pharaoh fears death more than anything, and the priests sell him immortality by the ounce. And you start to see the whole thing for what it is, a game. Gold, power, lies, and fear. And suddenly, you're not just a slave anymore. You're inside the circle. You should have felt proud, but all you felt was dirty. Because for the first time, you realized hell doesn't have demons, it has priests.
You used to think chains were made of iron. Then you learned the truth. The strongest chains are made of trust. And you'd earned some. The priests liked you because you didn't talk. The guards liked you because you didn't complain. The Pharaoh liked you because he didn't even know you existed. Perfect. A ghost in plain sight. You started to notice things. How the high priests whispered before ceremonies. How they measured the Pharaoh's health like traders measure grain. How they sold visions and omens depending on who paid more. And when one priest accidentally dropped a gold amulet near you, you didn't give it back. You looked at it, heavy, shiny, useless, and thought, so this is what power feels like. One night, a young priest caught you pocketing food. He looked at you like he'd seen a monster. You smiled. "Don't worry," you said. "The gods forgive hunger, don't they?" He didn't answer, just walked away, shaking. You could tell he'd talk, so that night you followed him, and when his body floated in the Nile the next morning, no one asked questions. You weren't a slave anymore. You were becoming something else, something the desert makes when it's tired of mercy.